hit record before I forget. So I don't have anything major to chat with you guys about today. I thought we would just have an open discussion about the private yoga classes, little assessment you're going to be doing. Have you had a chance to watch through the video?
Yes.
Cool. So you'll see in that that video, you're going to go through a little range of movement assessment. So you're going to look at their posture, you're going to assess their hamstring length, and just overall the way they move. So it's just a very basic outline. It's something quite nice to incorporate into private yoga classes. Do you guys ever teach privates? No?
Yes.
Yeah. Taryn, Eva, you teach privates? Tegan, you teach privates?
Yeah, I teach a lot of privates.
Yeah. So I also teach loads of privates, and it's always quite nice to start off with a little bit of a basic assessment. They're normally filling out their indemnity forms, and it's something you can just incorporate. Okay, for our first session, we're just going to go through. It's going to be a little bit different from how we'll normally run. We're just going to go through a couple of exercises just so you can also see how they move. Assess if there's anything you need to kind of check in with their kind of overall goals. What do they want from these classes? If they just want to move and breathe, or maybe they're looking to build specific kind of strength or mobility. So it's quite nice. Have anyone ever tried something like this before? Janine? So you've done something like this?
I have, yes. Celeste does a lot of it. So yeah, I have done one or two.
Yeah. And Eva, you also something you've incorporated before?
Yes, I usually do the functional movement screen with people, which is a concept that comes from the whole, I think Emma will probably also know it, the whole functional training stuff. But it's not that different from the yoga poses. So that is what I incorporate in a practice, and then I let them do the exercises.
Yeah, and I think like Pilates teacher as well, and we do it all the time before you take on anyone for Pilates. They go through a whole assessment, they go through like a whole program to get them to a stage where if they want to attend classes. I think in personal training and other modalities, they do it quite a lot as well. And I think it's quite a fun thing to do for yoga as well, if it's something you're interested in exploring. Just another tool for the toolbox, right?
And the clients also like it. They feel like they're getting this one-on-one, and they like to know exactly what's going on with their body. So it's nice for them.
Exactly. It feels kind of more specialized for them. You're not just, you can kind of customize their program to really bring in stuff that they want to do. It shows that you're really kind of going the extra mile and checking in with them, which is really nice. So on that, do you have any questions? I know Claire was asking if she could do it on her husband so that she can kind of have the contact to be able to work with a person rather than the suggested ones there. So I don't mind if you want to just imagine someone and kind of assess, well, if I have an office worker, what are their bodies are going to be like, and just kind of go through the stages. Or if you have someone to do it on, go for it. Carrie, you have a question?
Yes. First, just a question regarding the assignment that we're about to do. I think in the schedule it says that we're going to have to hand in a private client assessment, but in the video you say it's like a assessment plus 6-week program. So I just want to clarify.
Yes.
Is it both, or?
So what you're going to do is just go through the range of movement assessment and then design a program for them. It might be a long program, it might just be a short-term program, and kind of depending what you've chosen, you might want to do it over a few weeks or just as you go. So designing that kind of the next step, taking it further after your assessment, once you kind of know the body that you're working with.
Okay. And can I ask more questions?
Yes, please do.
I have like two questions. They're kind of related, maybe. the first is, so if you do like the mobility assessment, would you just like do like these basic assessment exercises that you listed in the video and take them through them like statically? Or would you in the first session like do this assessment and then also take them already through a little bit of movement so that they feel like they've gotten like a yoga class out of it? And second question is, if you're designing this program, like, do you work, like how much do you work with repetition? Like, will you create a certain set of exercises that you work on with them and maybe add progressions along the way? Or is it more like same thing in mind, but kind of a different sequence or different program every week?
Yeah, so I guess it always depends on the person. It always helps when you have an example. And it might be, you might find that just going through some of those exercises would be enough for someone. But if they move quite well, maybe you bring it into a little bit more of a flow, that you're kind of incorporating that in a sun salutation with a little bit of movement. And you might even start bringing in some of those basic poses right from the get-go. So it's completely up to you how you want to do it. Something to just think about. How would you approach it? So I think that's a great question. And always kind of depends on the person you're with. Sometimes I find when I'm breaking down the poses, like an hour goes by so quickly and we've only really talked about it kind of a few basic kind of movements. But it depends on the person. And then to follow up with your next question, I think it's nice to kind of progressively move. So every week, maybe it will be a little bit of repetition with some progressive stuff, but it kind of depends what they're looking for. Are they wanting to go through all the yoga standing poses so that they know what they're doing so they can attend your classes? Or are they there for a specific reason, like building strength, which of course would be quite a bit of repetition and progressive loading over time? So I guess it kind of depends on who you're working with. But great questions and everything to consider along the way. That answer your question? Firdaus?
Can we do it on ourselves, or would that be cheating?
It'd be quite nice. So, but what we're going to do towards the end is you're going to develop a home practice and you're kind of going to go through these things again. Okay. So it might be a bit repetitive because something we're going to explore for yourself as well, putting together your own program. Okay. So maybe do 2 Firdaus if you want to go through yourself as well, and then maybe somebody else too.
And can it, I mean, sorry, I haven't actually watched the video yet, so excuse me.
That's all good.
But is it, it's an imagined person or an actual person? Pretty
much, because, I mean, normally when we're together, we kind of team up and pretend that we're like, pretend like we're rugby players. Okay, what would be tight? What would be restricted? And of course, you're kind of imagining that now on your own. But say now you have someone at home that you want to do this with, then feel free to also do it with someone if you want. Otherwise, it is kind of like one of the options is like take an office worker. What type of body would they have? What kind of restrictions? What kind of issues do you think you'll see? And then put together a program taking in those kind of issues, which is quite common. We work with that kind of body type quite a lot with beginners. And then there'll also be a different example, someone that wants to learn how to do a handstand. So you're pretty much doing a lot of strength work, specifically like you guys have been doing, and putting that into a program. So you've got a couple options there to play with, but if you want to do it with someone like Claire is, then feel free to. Any other questions regarding your private range of movement assessment and putting together a little program?
Laura, I've got a question.
Yes, Juliet.
You mentioned in your presentation we can choose like a mom, a pregnant mom, and I'm not feeling very comfortable about teaching with a pregnant woman because I consider that I don't have enough knowledge on this topic to manage this kind of person. So I don't know if we are going to study this profile later or not. I don't know. if you can tell me more about that.
Yep. So I think Ava chose that as well, and she thought also some things she doesn't really do a lot, and maybe she wants to explore it a little bit more. So maybe it's something worth researching. I know we normally touch on this subject. I'm not sure whether it's in your schedule, but maybe something, if you want to take something like that and do a little bit of research around it. I just get mixed up between our 200 hour and the 300 hour. And a lot of the time, I mean, I'm exactly the same when it comes to working with pregnant ladies, because there's so many people that specialize in this. And I often refer them to someone who really, you know, has the tools, and they do a class and is really specialized, and they connect with other moms, which I think is also really nice in the process. So if it's something you want to look into more, feel free to. I know it's a whole nother discussion, right?
Yeah, it's a tricky subject.
It's a tricky subject. And for me, it's not something that I specialize in. So I tend to advise that they go to someone else. But I have worked with pregnant ladies before, and it's worth kind of knowing your basics and how to work around it as well. So maybe an opportunity to explore this if it's something you want to do. Yeah. Up to you.
Okay.
Who else had their hand up there? Ashton, did you have your hand up?
Yes, it was me, Laura. Much like Firdousa, I also haven't watched the video yet, so forgive me if this is one of the examples offered. But I was thinking it might be interesting. I also do ultra trail running, so I was thinking it might be interesting to design a program around a specific performance goal. Say, for example, addressing the flexibility needs and things that could perhaps enhance the performance of an ultramarathon runner as a hypothetical client.
Yeah, absolutely. I want it to be relevant for you, most of all, because all of these things are for you to explore and make it helpful for yourself going forwards. So absolutely. And I know there's a lot of research and conflicting information about, is yoga good for athletes? So maybe something to also check into, because sometimes they need to be tight and restricted in order to do the stuff that they do. Where yoga can be helpful to stretch as well. So it's also a whole nother topic, right?
Yeah, I was thinking an angle that's typically explored or has been explored in the past is yoga as stretching and recovery, but I wonder whether or not there are certain things you can do in yoga that would not only help with recovery, but actually increase your performance with something like trail running. So I'd like to have a look into that. If
I think that's totally cool, Ashton. And if it's people you work with and that's relevant in your situation, I think that's awesome. Make it for yourself. Make it something that's helpful for you going forwards, rather than something that's maybe not helpful, like working with a pregnant lady necessarily.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Because we all kind of specialize, and we have our interests in different kind of things, and we kind of attract those people to work with. Like for me, I get a lot of dancers coming for private yoga classes because they want to strengthen their core. They endlessly want to get more flexible, even though they don't often need to. But we kind of find stability within their huge ranges of movement. So we all kind of specialize within our own stuff. So maybe you want to bring that example in as well. Or feel free to take one of those that are there. And maybe something in the future that you will offer as private yoga classes, starting with a first assessment, and just something, just a practice round to go through all the stages. Always easier when you have the body in front of you. So you might have to wing it a little bit in this lockdown life. Caro and Janine. I don't know who was first.
I don't know either.
Okay, go for it, Caro.
I can start. Don't have a question, just thought I want to express, like, privates are something that are really intimidating to me, because you're really kind of in this one-on-one situation where I feel like you have to prove that you know your stuff a lot more. Like you really need to, like for me, it's like it feels like a lot of pressure, or it's something that really like stresses me out thinking about it, because I'm like, okay, if I put the person now into the lunch and then maybe I see that something funny is going on with their hip, but I can't figure out what, and then I'm, you know, so there's like a lot of worries connected with the idea of teaching privates. It seems like a very scary thing to me, because you're so put out on the spot, and then there's a person investing a decent amount of money in your expertise, and yeah, it just seems like a big obstacle to overcome for me, not having been teaching for years and years and years, but I've only been teaching for like a year and a half now. So it feels very intimidating to me. So there's no real question connected to that. I just thought.
I think it's a really important topic to raise. And Roxy, do you have something to add to that? And then Eva?
So, Caro, I absolutely love teaching private, just because it feels like, it's like when you go get a massage, you know, even if that person might not do like a crazy thing, just getting that attention on you and someone else holding space for you is already amazing. And like, you can put in your mind, like, yes, they're paying much more money for private than going in the studio, but just you being there sometime and just breathing with them, that's all they need sometime. And it's, you know, it's just holding space. So that's what I really enjoy. And I also enjoy arriving at a private and just kind of like freestyling to what they need is on that day, because your private is going to be maybe tired on that day, or maybe, yes, they want to work on flexibility, but this day they want to change their mind. And it feels like you're so much more in the moment, because you might come with something that you've planned, but at the end of the day, maybe it's maybe in confidence, and it's a little bit more intimidating, but it's amazing because it makes you really in the present moment of that person, and just like answering their need at that moment, which I really enjoy. Like, I like that space where you come and it's like, it's real, it's happening now. But like I said, like, sometimes they don't need much, and you're just breathing with them and just holding space for them is already exactly what they need.
That sounds beautiful. Thank you, Roxy.
Eva?
Yes, I totally agree with Roxy, and I can add to that it's, in the end, it's even easier to teach and to please one person than a group. Because like, if you have the group, we had all these discussions about how do you cue? There are people who are hyper flexible and some that are really stiff, and how do you find the balance? Who do you address? For whom do you teach? You know, that you will always have to make compromises if you teach a class, because you're teaching a class and not one specific person. And Caro, we all have known you now for some weeks, and I would not at all be afraid of anything. You can answer any question, and they will learn so much from you. You know, you will always have to think, if you're going to a doctor, from personal experience, I know that a lot of them don't have a clue about what they are talking about, and still all the people, they trust them because they are doctors. So first of all, you're the yoga teacher and you are the authority, and they will trust you. And then they will, whatever you do with them, you can work with them specifically, and you will see the results immediately, because you do things for them and not for just everyone in a class. So they will see how they progress, and they will be so very thankful for that. And that is, for me, teaching just one-on-one, or what is harder is if you teach a couple. That is the most extreme. Then it's easier to teach a class. But if you teach one person, it's perfect, and you can do it. I know that.
Absolutely.
Firdaus? And then Janine will come to you next, and then Lauren and Anya will come to you next.
Yeah, I wanted to say something quite similar to what Eva said, actually, about like having confidence in your own ability and just understanding when you're the authority and that sort of stuff. But I also just wanted to maybe share an experience, because I find teaching privates a little bit, I don't want to use the word awkward, but sometimes awkward. Maybe I've just had some strange people, because I often find, like, when you go to people's homes and they have a lot of their own stuff around, and like there's a dog jumping on them, and then they don't want to tell the dog to go away. I've had a lot of dog experiences with privates. I almost enjoy like a very small group, between 3 and 5, I find, because also what I find then is you cultivate a lot of group energy, and they can also feed off each other. So you're doing a little bit less work because they're kind of learning from each other a little bit, and you're holding the space for the group instead of like pouring your energy into one person. So that's just my experience. I don't know if anybody finds similar, but I find a small group and watching them grow as a group and then building a community can actually be really special.
Janine?
Thank you. Cara, I also have only been teaching for a year, not even actually. And my first class ever, I was thrown into it without knowing that I was going to have to teach, and only one person arrived. And I was petrified. And it was the best class ever. The client felt so special. She's like, oh my word, I want to do privates all the time. And it was actually so easy because I just winged it. I'm like, what do you feel like today? And we went for it. So it was really nice. But you could definitely teach privates. And I wanted to ask one other thing, Laura. I'm very interested in pregnancy yoga. I'm actually a qualified doula, which I haven't done for a long time because it's just, I mean, I did it in government hospitals, and it's just, in Joburg, it's not safe to travel all the way into Hillbrow. But really, there is no course on pregnancy yoga anywhere. I can't find anything specific on. So, I mean, it's fine for someone who's pregnant and who's done yoga before. You can carry on as normal, except lie flat on your tummy. But if you've never done yoga before and you want to do yoga and you're pregnant, you know, you've got that ligament, all of that comes into play when you're pregnant. So you've got to be careful.
Janine, if you in Joburg, there's one, I'll send you the information on. There's a pregnancy yoga school in Joburg that runs courses.
Oh, wow.
So you can learn how to become a full pregnancy yoga teacher. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And I agree, if it's something that you're really interested in doing, just make it an add-on course for yourself, you know, and really spend the time and go through it, because I think it's quite beautiful if it's something that you're keen to do. I know in Cape Town we also have fantastic teachers here that really specialize in it. Okay, who is next? Anya, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I love what everybody said. And Cara, I also think that, well, everyone else as well, when you're teaching privates, I think it's some people may do it because they're not 100% certain of poses, and you're not going to be 100% certain of their bodies either. So if you cue them to get into a pose and they can't do it, they've got your undivided attention for you to try different versions of it, or different positions of the arms and adding more space and stuff like that. So it's not that you have to know their body straight away, because there's no way that you can, but you can dedicate the time to get them to feel their body and become aware of what it's feeling in different poses and how to make it feel better for them as well.
Oh. Absolutely. Lauren?
Hi. Yeah, exactly what Anya said. Cara, I think so. Teaching privates for me can be quite, if anything, a little bit more tiring, because I feel like you're doing the class with them and holding space. But I think the best thing is obviously have your sequence, speak to them before, and then have space to not, like Janine said, wing it a bit. But I think it's definitely because you're right there. You can read the energy and how the person is feeling, and talk to them during the pose. Like, how are you feeling? Where are you feeling it? And just remember that you already know so much more than the person coming to yoga. So don't be scared. Just go for it. And then, yeah. And then, yeah, on the president, yeah, Janine, fake it till you make it. I love it. And then on the pregnancy thing, so I'm a qualified pregnancy teacher. And I did a course also with a lady, I think she's normally in Joburg. I'm not sure where you are, Janine. But I can also send you a really nice book to get you started. It's at my studio. I'll be there later, so I'll put a picture on the group, and it gives you a lot of information if you want to whet your appetite.
Thanks, Lauren. Claire, did you have your hand up?
I did. I'm just not sure whether there's a point to mentioning it, because I was also going to mention, you know, in our 200 hour, we did an amazing, I'm going to call it a workshop, but it was a weekend that we spent with a lady. Her name's Shelly Mackey, and she's a qualified doula and yoga teacher, and she did pregnancy yoga with us with this most comprehensive manual. And after that, I've taught private pregnancy client or pregnant clients after that, because her manual was so comprehensive. She's in New Zealand now, but she does do, I know she did a Zoom session with our last 200-hour teachers, and I thought I would just ask her and find out, even if she didn't mind me sharing the manual with you guys. It was phenomenal. And then Janine, obviously you've got that doula background, and Shelley's coming from just the awe and wow of life and the awareness of how women change in their whole bodies, and even the hip skeletal structure, how there's a bit of movement and shifting there when you're pregnant. So it was fascinating, and like I said, her manual's amazing. But yeah, I've asked her, so I'll wait and see, and if she's happy with that, then I'll send it to the group and everyone can have a squiz at that.
Thanks, Claire. I wanted to bring it back to something that Firdaus was saying, going to people's houses for teaching private yoga. Has anyone had experience with that, like Firdaus has with the dogs? And Roxy?
I didn't hear your question. You said to share, what did you say?
Sorry. Oh, going to people's homes and offering private yoga at their homes.
Yes.
And maybe some issues involved in that.
So definitely the dog and pet issues. I think the clients always like having their pets around when they do yoga, and then the dog's getting involved and they're pretending they're also doing yoga. So that can often distract you from, you know, keeping the clients kind of like focused and breathing, and you're like, okay, now just close your eyes, go back into breathing or whatever. But it's fun because that's what they enjoy. Also, it's being able to be comfortable in their home with the kids around or whatever. So that's also great. And what I really enjoy is, for me as a teacher, going to people's home, I really enjoy it because it's kind of like a private safe space, and to go to people's home instead of studios makes it much more, you understand people's background much more. And sometimes you're teaching, you know, in beautiful homes, especially if they are wealthy clients or if they're just here for holidays. So you end up going in beautiful, beautiful places as well. So I enjoyed that much more than going in a studio that has 4 walls and heated things around or whatever. So I like the variety and diversity of moving from client to client this way.
Tegan, you have something to add there, and then we'll come to you, Firdaus.
So yeah, I have a lot of a few private clients, and now most of them I've had some even since I started teaching, so like quite a few years. So I have like quite a nice relationship with my clients. But one of my clients has had a child, and even now over Zoom, like her daughter will break the laptop during class, and you know, it's also just that's your choice. You know your daughter, you could see it happening in slow motion. So you know, it's also what people like, Roxanne was saying, it's also what people kind of enjoy. They don't, you know, she knows that's what happens when her daughter's there, and that's part of the experience that also she wants. So that's also been quite nice. And I think if you build relationships with your privates, it can feel really nice because you get to know what they're really working on. And what else could I add to privates? Actually, yeah, I wanted to say, Caro, I find that privates, when I started teaching, privates were the best because it's like mostly they're beginners and you're just like at ease. It's just one person instead of a class. So if you are worried about nerves, I promise you privates will be easy peasy if you've been teaching classes. I remember classes were like, whoa, in the beginning. So well done to you. So private should be a breeze.
Thanks, Tegan, for those.
Yeah, just on like people's homes, because obviously like one of the things that I found is sometimes people are not sure how to like prepare their home for you. So, I mean, not for you, but for the fact that they're going to have a yoga class. So you might find, like, I remember one experience where the floor was really not very clean, and obviously that makes it a bit difficult, or they don't have the space and they thought this will be enough space, but it's actually not enough space. So like maybe, I don't know, I haven't thought about it, but now that we're talking about it, maybe sending a little something beforehand saying, this is what we'll need this much space, and I mean, you can't say please clean the floor, but maybe there's another way you can put it, just so that people are aware of like, this is what's going to take place, and we're going to need this much space and this much time, and also timekeeping, because the other challenging thing with privates, especially when you get to know them, is they start going and then they're telling you about their personal issues, their life, their this, their that, and then your 1 hour class becomes 30 minutes, and then they still want you to stay longer, but you have to leave. Or so like really having your own boundaries, I think, is quite important, because you must know what time you start, what time you finish. There's nothing to say you can't become friends, but like the class is the class, and then afterwards you can have your whatever you're going to have. So I think those are really interesting things to think through.
I'm so glad you brought up boundaries with private yoga students, because I agree. Sometimes my students come and they just come for a fat chat. And I'm like, well, this is your hour. If that's what you want to do, cool. But sometimes it's more exhausting. It's like a psychology session rather than a yoga class, and creating boundaries. And also be safe when you go to people's homes, especially someone that you don't know before. Maybe best to set up a meeting, in a public place that you feel comfortable with the person before rocking up at a stranger's home. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. So I think there's quite a lot of dynamics when it comes to going to people's homes. And how do you guys feel about that?
Laura, also, sorry, just to add one more thing.
Yes.
Also, sometimes you'll have like the wife, I'm just saying a wife will book a class, and you get there and it's like, well, can my husband and my kid and my next door neighbor also join? So there's also that sort of thing about like, maybe they book it for one and then suddenly 4 people arrive. And what are you going to do then?
It's a big thing. And people will push your boundaries because they think that this is an exclusive class for them. Oh, what's one more? My friend's joining now, and it turns into a whole different dynamic. Claire?
I was going to add to Firdousa's thing, it's boundaries, but also I think it creates a sense of security when, and I'm putting inverted commas, when you lay down the rules. Okay, this is what is expected, this is how it's going to go down, this is how we work. So you tell them in advance, okay, if we're doing a private, I'm expecting 1 person. If you have more than 1 person, you need to tell me, and this is how the charges work, and sort of like make sure that they know exactly what's going on, so that there's no confusion when it comes to, hey, I've rocked up and, my sister's brother's uncle's friends here and they want to join too. Tough. That's not how this works. But you have to have, you have to lay down how things are going to work out and make it very clear so that there isn't a blur where people can cross the line. Because I think if people can, they will, if you haven't made things very clear as to how things work, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally agree. Tegan?
So I do agree with you if that's how you do your rates and everything, but I actually feel like I couldn't really be bothered who shows up, who doesn't. I have a set like hourly rate, and I'm pretty happy with that rate. If you want to have your 100 friends over, that's super cool. I don't really care. I mean, if they've got their mats, all I'm doing is reducing my teaching to you, so you kind of know that. So if it makes my class more affordable for you and your 4 friends, great. I kind of don't mind. That's just my personal feeling though. Also because I just don't want to be doing the admin of, oh, it's 10% on my rate for each extra person. And I just don't care. I'm super chilled. I'm still doing the same. To me, I'm doing the same amount of work. I don't see how it's more energy. I think group classes are way easier. So it's actually, yeah, unless they're like all beginners, but even then it's just a beginner class. So
yeah, and I guess it's completely up to you at the end of the day, hey, because you're running your own little business.
Yeah, I think it just depends, you know, like what is your rate and what do you think your rate is an hour? And if you think that, well, for me, like that's what I'm concerned about. And I'm pretty happy with my rates an hour. I don't think I don't think there's any need to add. That's just my personal thoughts though. But you know, and that's the thing, it's everyone's different. And like I said, it's like, if you want to do the extra little bit of admin, and like, I definitely don't. So, you know, there's just a little few add-ons that like, I think, yeah, that if you want to do, then absolutely. And maybe you supply mats and maybe you supply all the other things, which I don't. So if you have mats and your friends come, that's great. I'm not now suddenly forking out my nice mats in my car and my practice. Like, this is my mat. So yeah, doesn't put me out, I think.
I think it's always to make sure that you don't feel in any way that you're being taken advantage of or boundaries are being crossed. And we all, you know, have to just be mindful of that when it comes to privates. Does anyone else have anything else they want to add? All good? Okay, so I hope you enjoyed the process of going through your private assessment and just doing assessments for yoga, something that we don't normally do. So maybe something fun to explore. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks, Caro. Yes?
Thank you.
Yes, I have one more question that I wanted to ask, which is regarding strength. Like, if you do strength assessments, you've been talking about plank, and I think this is what we talk about a lot, strength kind of connected to shoulder strength. But strength classes, I mean, I think shoulders is one of the major things in yoga, since we do a lot of like the down dog and the plank and yada yada. But would you also kind of take them into a very excruciatingly long Utkatasana to check like legs, or like what other strength components could play a role there? Because this is like, it's just this word, you know, strength, and all I'm thinking of is like chaturanga and plank and then maybe Utkatasana, but I'm having difficulty to think of like other strength areas and then maybe kind of assessment poses.
That's a great question. What do you guys think? What other strength orientated poses could you bring in? And what other parts of the body? Where do you see people fatiguing a lot in a class?
In balances.
Balances? Standing poses?
I mean, beginners really, they're fatiguing most things because it's challenging.
I think I see it a lot even just in high lunge.
Yeah. High lunge is a hard one.
It is. It is. And you see people's legs start to shake a little. But it depends, you know, maybe they have really strong legs from, you know, running and hiking and doing things, but they struggle with other things. Eva, your hand is up.
Yes, I think that is true. There are so many other parts of the body where strengths could be assessed, but the thing is it necessary? Because the way I teach, the thing, if people really want and come for yoga, the only thing I am worried about is overloading them on their shoulders. Because if I go through sun salutations, or if that's what they want, that is something that they don't normally do. Because they are walking and running and using their legs to carry their body weight the whole day long, except for when they sit. So I see that as I go along. If I see they can't hold the long lunge as long as I had planned to, then I can, it's one-on-one, I can just make it a little bit shorter. But if I go through a lot of sun salutations and put load on my shoulders repetitively, I think it's good to know in advance how far I can go. And that is why I would also use plank, but not do any other specific strengths assessments, because that is something that you clearly see if it's the legs or if it's the core or whatever. It's more or less then that you see maybe they are not using the muscles in the right connections or whatever, but it's nothing like I would worry about in advance.
Anya, you also had your hand up to add to that.
Yeah, I was just gonna point out maybe if they tight hamstrings or something like that, you know, that if they're particularly tight, it's something that could be worked on as well, as opposed to like lifting strength. That's all.
Yep, so absolutely. I think just overall, just assessing, I think a lot of the time what people struggle with is the shoulder, wrists. Think about when you first started yoga. I remember for me, it was just, I just used to feel everything in my wrists. So I guess over time, it's just that progressive loading on hands, on shoulders, and then just depends on the person. If you have someone with really low muscle tone, maybe they're going to benefit from a few extra leg exercises as well as arms. So I think it just depends on the person always, which helps. But something worth thinking about. When you started yoga, what did you feel you were lacking strength in? Mostly shoulders and arms, hey? Yes, Eva's your hand up. And then Roxy will come to you next.
And I think that people, if they are not thinking about their shoulders in terms of strength, so if they say, well, my legs are really weak, they will come and say my legs are really weak, I want stronger legs. But not a lot of people come in and say, I want stronger shoulders. Or they are not thinking about that maybe their wrists can't take a lot of load because they're never doing it. So for me, like a lot of people say, I want better abs, or, you know, like that is the typical things, and you can work on that. I do a lot of strength. I work a lot with athletes, so they are strength oriented. So that's for sure. But if I have someone who's just coming in and I make an assessment, it would be more for flexibility and for like how they move, movement quality, and the strength for the shoulders. So the plank is wrist and shoulders in one. So yeah.
Roxy?
For me, I found the strength a lot in the spine. Like when I started yoga and I was just doing just halfway lift hold or anything where you got to like kind of like lengthen your spine. I was like, oh, there's so many kind of little muscle in my spine that, or in my back really, that I kind of never think of if I'm just, you know, standing or sitting. And then in yoga and all this posture, like Warrior Free, for example, like how you got to engage your entire back, that I really like realized how much strength my back needed for that.
And that's such a huge benefit to yoga as well, is that postural strength and back strength as well, which I think is sometimes more important than a lot of other things where people come to work on their core because they have a sore back. And sometimes let's just strengthen your back. You know, it depends, of course, on the person and what's going on. Yeah. But Dad's saying seated meditation and back. So, I mean, putting a beginner into a seated pose and saying sit there for 5 minutes is really hard. Their back and their legs and everything's going to be exhausted. Anything else you want to chat about in regards to privates? Feeling okay to put together your assessment with an imaginary person or a real person? Taking into account everything we chatted about today. Okay, well done everyone. I hope you had fun in the class this morning playing with a few handstands. I know a lot of you weren't there, so maybe we'll check in later. I know Eva had fun even with her sore wrist.
Really do the class. I can kick up in a handstand. It's not, but it's always such a struggle for me. It's so much effort. And for the first time today, I really learned to use my fingers. And it was so controlled. It was great. I loved the class. It was perfect for me.
Yeah, I'm so glad. Roxy?
Just to add on the class this morning, thank you again. I found also for any handstand, I don't know if someone else experienced this, if I have to do donkey kicks, so from down dog, you kind of go to donkey kicks where you bend both knees and you bring both knees in your belly. And then that often makes me feel like I can hold handstand much better than if I kick, because if I kick, I go in a wheel straight away because of my back bend. But if I just kind of like bring both my knees in my belly, sometimes I can hold it there for longer and then I can straighten my legs. But yes, so that was like what I was practicing today during class because I didn't have a wall, and
I saw Roxy go boom over into full wheel, and then she did like a roll up from a massive back bend. So what's different for Roxy, and why does she feel more stability? And I can relate with that a bit, Roxy, as well. Who might need more momentum? Who might need less momentum? When Roxy kicks over, she feels like she's going to drop over into a back bend. Cara?
Well, I'm having very, very long legs, and I can definitely tell you that I do need more momentum, because like just the ratio of my torso versus my legs, it's very difficult for me to get my legs so close to my body that my bum is like, that my hips are actually sticking up enough to just elegantly lift off the ground. I really need that bit of spring, which makes it scary for me to try this in the open space. But yeah, longer legs, or like just the ratio, like longer legs in relation to the upper body will need a bit more momentum.
Yeah. Eva, and then we'll come to you for those.
I totally get that, but I have to say I have very, very, very short legs. And I have the same problem. It's actually because, like, you know, if I walk my feet in, which is easy for me, then my upper body is like, I could like put my hands on the ground like 20 centimeters below me with a straight back. So I have to round my back, or I have to go back, and then my bum is so far back, and that is heavy. So I need a lot of momentum as well, because my fulcrum is, I think, at the same place as Caro's is. So both of us have a lot of weight on the wrong side of the equation. For me, it's my bum and some other stuff, and for Caro, it's her long legs. But both of it doesn't make it easier. But it makes it easier to bring more weight into the fingers. I never noticed that before. So today was easier.
It's such a worthwhile discussion, because we're all so different, and I agree Roxy needs to approach handstand differently because something else is going on for her there. For Dose?
I was also just thinking that maybe people with restricted hamstrings like me need a lot more momentum, and maybe Roxy's got really unrestricted hamstrings, so that's why she's like, whoo, all the way over.
And what else does Roxy have that we've kind of noted over the last few weeks?
Shoulder.
Really mobile shoulders. So I was almost saying to Roxy in the class today, instead of like all of us, we were doing push, push, push. For Roxy, the push makes her shoulders even more mobile, makes them want to go back even more. So I was saying to Roxy, almost sink a little bit, like feel like your arm is pulling into the socket to reduce range of movement, which is pretty much the opposite for 90% of people. So Roxy's working with a completely different dynamic in her handstand, and it's pretty much only for those with like very, very mobile shoulders. So I feel that as well. I've been pushing and pushing. My shoulders also tend to go back a bit far, and it makes it scary. So I also prefer little knee tucks. So I get where you're coming from, Roxy. But I also agree for most normal, we need the momentum and we need the push to get up. So it's also having a look at what's happening in everyone's handstand. Everyone has to adjust accordingly for their bodies, because handstand's a lot of skill work, and you've got to find how much momentum you need to get up, how much kick, how much lean, with working with whatever body you're in. And it's nice to have that chat because it's different. Eva?
Just an idea, Caro. Did you try to do the handstand with your hands on blocks, because that's what I do the opposite way. I put my feet on blocks, so then I can get my, you know, my hip a little bit more up and more into the vertical position. Maybe if you make your upper body a little bit longer in proportion to your legs, maybe that helps you with not needing so much momentum as well.
That's a good point. I definitely will try that. I'm trying to think right now what this
but
would.
Don't try it after your gin. Wait.
That's gonna follow me around, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Roxy, and then Vedette.
Sorry, just to add a question regarding queuing for handstand. So, I mean, with Catherine, we looked at, I mean, we haven't yet, but I know she's going to say that we don't need much core engagement for handstand or things like this. But regarding your glutes, I found like if I squeeze my bum, it helps me stay much more straight, and then I don't go back in my lumbar spine. Like it makes me kind of hold it much more. So do you think that's a good cueing for people that have bendy backs and that tend to just go there if they just squeeze the bum to keep them like into space?
So I think like for you, you may need to recruit like feeling your ribs coming in and a few more muscle recruitments to stop you from falling backwards. So for you, I think it's totally relevant. It just depends on the body, but I can see how you just want to go over. So if you have to think of tightening your ribs in a little bit more and to not fall backwards, then absolutely. And sometimes what Catherine's getting, when you feel the stack, when everything is kind of stacking and balancing, it's mostly all happening here in your hands, right? But for Roxy to stop her from falling back, she's going to need to do a few other things because of her bendy back and shoulders. Vedette?
I'm not sure if I'm even on the right track, but Cara, I also have got quite long legs, and I just find that for me to go from a down dog is just so much harder. So if I can get my feet closer towards my hands, I don't know if that's back to load, I'm not sure, but yeah, a lot easier to kick up than from a long, yeah.
Totally. From downward dog is crazy. You have to be really, really strong.
Even short, yeah. It's like
the more you can walk in, the better. From downward dog, it's nice just to feel the actions of kicking, but really tough to go all the way up. The world of handstands is huge, but so much fun here. And it brings out the crazy. So that's why today I was like, well done, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'll check in with you guys next week, mostly via email. I don't think we have any classes together next week. You're going to journey into a few other interesting things. So I'll check in with you soon, and loving the process, loving teaching you all, and chat soon.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Bye.
Bye.
Chat to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.